Have you ever felt that someone close to you secretly hates you? In this special video, we will explore the 11 obvious signs that might confirm that uncomfortable feeling. As Carl Jung said, hatred is the most intense form of contempt, and how true that is. Often hatred hides behind a facade of kindness, while that person holds a grudge inside or acts behind your back. But don't worry, because in this video, you will not only learn how to identify those people who hide their hatred, but I will also show you how to act with each type of individual. At the end of the video, I will reveal the most surprising and common sign that we all overlook, and I will explain how we can use it to our advantage. Before we begin, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. Let's get started. First sign: they ignore you in silence. Silence can be more powerful than 1,000 words, especially when it becomes a tool of contempt. Have you ever felt that someone close to you begins to ignore you for no apparent reason? It's as if, suddenly, that person who used to be open and warm becomes distant, almost invisible. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly now reduce to monosyllables, short responses, and evasive glances. This kind of silence is not just an absence of words, it's a clear sign that something deep is happening. This silence isn't just the lack of voice, it becomes an invisible wall separating you from that person. In psychological terms, it is described as a form of passive rejection, something that in many cases can be even more painful than a direct conflict. Did you know that the human brain processes social rejection in a very similar way to physical pain? Even though there are no hurtful words, that uncomfortable silence can make you feel as if you're being emotionally beaten. In ancient Greece, ostracism was one of the harshest punishments. To exclude someone from public life was considered more cruel than death itself, because it involved the removal of one's social identity. In many ways, the rejection expressed through modern silence has an emotional impact equivalent to that. Exclusion, when left unspoken, is a form of emotional torture that can be more devastating than it appears on the surface. So, how do we face this kind of silence? The first step is to be honest with yourself and the other person. If you're being deliberately ignored, it's essential to address the situation calmly and without aggression. Ask straightforwardly, what's going on? Sometimes a direct conversation can open the door to reconciliation or, at the very least, offer clarity on what is truly happening. Communication is the most powerful tool to diffuse the emotional damage caused by silence. However, there are times when, no matter how much you try to talk, the other person will continue with their distant attitude. In those cases, it is crucial to reflect deeply on the situation. If someone continues to treat you badly, ignore you, or make you feel invisible, it may be a sign that it's time to distance yourself. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, put it perfectly. There is nothing nobler than the truth, even though sometimes it hurts. The truth is that you deserve relationships where you're respected and valued. You shouldn't stay in a situation where you feel ignored or emotionally mistreated. When silence becomes a tool of manipulation, the best defense is to prioritize your emotional well-being. If someone is deliberately ignoring you, is it really worth staying there? It is far more valuable to be alone at peace with yourself than surrounded by people who make you feel empty. Emotional peace and self-esteem are priceless, and no human bond should undermine them. Second signal: empty smiles. Have you ever noticed that someone close to you smiles but you don't feel any warmth in that smile? It's as if their facial expression is simply on autopilot. Do you know what I mean? That smile that seems more like a mechanical gesture than a true sign of affection. Well, this could be a sign that this person secretly hates you, but instead of confronting you directly, they hide their true feelings behind an empty smile. The smile is one of the most universal facial expressions. We all understand it, we all use it. But did you know that the way we smile can reveal much more than we think? When someone is truly happy or genuinely glad to see you, that smile reaches their eyes. And here's where it gets interesting. A genuine smile involves both the eyes and the lips, and this is something that psychological studies have clearly demonstrated. Paul Ekman, a famous psychologist and expert in the study of emotions, tells us that there are two main types of smiles: the Duchenne smile, genuine, and the non-Duchenne smile, false. The Duchenne smile involves a contraction of the muscles around the eyes, creating what we know as crow's feet. This smile is warm and authentic. On the other hand, the non-Duchenne smile only involves the contraction of the muscles in the lips. This is the empty smile, which can be used to hide or disguise negative feelings, such as resentment or contempt. Now, how can you tell if someone is giving you an empty smile? Pay attention to the rest of their body. An empty smile is often accompanied by other signs of discomfort, a closed posture, lack of eye contact, or even a cold and distant tone of voice. If they give you an empty smile, but you feel uncomfortable or as if you're being rejected, it's possible that this smile is not as genuine as it seems. I invite you to reflect on this point. Many times people are not comfortable confronting their emotions or problems directly. Instead of being honest and speaking up, they resort to these empty smiles to maintain an appearance of cordiality. But this appearance is far from the reality of what they really feel. Instead of confronting the problem or expressing what they truly think, they choose to hide their feelings behind a false smile. So, what can you do with this information? My advice is not to ignore these types of signals. Non-verbal communication, such as empty smiles, can tell you much more about what that person really feels. If empty smiles are repeated often, there's likely something more going on. It may be time to become more aware of how you feel around this person, and if necessary, talk about how their actions or behaviors are affecting you. Remember the famous quote by Albert Einstein, "Peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding." The fact that someone smiles at you emptily, without showing true interest, is a clear sign of disconnection. Authenticity is key in any relationship, and if you start noticing these empty smiles, it might be time to question what is really going on behind that expression. Third signal, curt and cold responses. Have you ever noticed that when interacting with someone close to you, the responses you get are cold or evasive? Although it may seem normal at first, it's a clear sign that something isn't right in the relationship. Curt responses are often a silent way of showing disdain, and the source of this behavior is often secret hatred. These responses reflect an emotional strategy of avoidance. The person seeks to keep their distance, avoiding showing interest or empathy. Phrases like "I don't know," "it's fine," or simply silence indicate that the person isn't willing to invest in the relationship. Through these comments, they seek to minimize interactions and keep you emotionally at bay. The goal behind curt responses isn't just disinterest, it's to avoid direct confrontations. Those who secretly hate prefer this evasion rather than expressing their true feelings. This behavior makes you feel invisible, emotionally excluded without the need for conflicts. It's important to recognize that these attitudes aren't the result of a bad day, but a conscious decision by the other person. If they respond coldly on a consistent basis, they are projecting a lack of interest toward you, affecting your emotional well-being. As psychologist Daniel Goleman said, "Emotions are contagious, which means that cold attitudes can negatively influence how you feel. In the long run, this type of response creates insecurity, frustration, and stress. It's crucial not to let this behavior become part of your life. If someone responds coldly, it's time to evaluate the value of the relationship. One way to handle this is to be direct but respectful. If you feel uncomfortable with the coldness, express what you feel. For example, "I've noticed that our conversations have changed. Has something happened?" This opens up space for communication without it seeming like an attack, but making it clear that the behavior is affecting the relationship. If the other person remains evasive, it's a sign that the relationship isn't reciprocal. It's important to prioritize your emotional well-being and surround yourself with people who value and respect you. You don't have to stay in a relationship that makes you feel invisible. Fourth signal, they constantly minimize you. Have you ever felt that no matter what you do, that person always seems to take away from your value? This kind of attitude is not only disrespectful, but also reflects an attempt to emotionally dominate you. Instead of supporting you, that person chooses to downplay your efforts, leaving you with the feeling that it's never enough. Psychologists like Albert Ellis, the creator of rational emotive behavior therapy, have highlighted that this type of behavior affects the victim's self-perception, causing them to start doubting their own worth. A common example is when you share an achievement or a project, and the response is something like, "Oh, that's not that impressive," or "Does that make you feel proud?" This kind of comment may seem harmless, but over time, it begins to erode your confidence. It's an emotional game designed to make you feel like you're not good enough. Here's something important to understand. Typically, this behavior comes from insecure people. Those who minimize you often project their own insecurities onto you. Their need to bring you down is directly related to their inability to feel good about themselves. If they couldn't see others as inferior, they would never feel better. It's a defense mechanism that allows them to feel less vulnerable. Imagine a successful person, like a business person who has built their own empire. Do you think this person, someone who has worked hard and achieved significant goals, would take the time to criticize or minimize another person who is trying to start a small business or share a new idea? Most likely, this person would help you, give advice, or even support your efforts. Secure people don't feel threatened by the achievements of others. On the contrary, they feel inspired and look for opportunities to support. If someone constantly minimizes you, it's important to remember that this reflects nothing about you, but about their own limitations. Instead of succumbing to these dismissive comments, the best thing is to strengthen your self-esteem and reaffirm your worth. One way to do this is by responding calmly and assertively. I understand that you may not see what I did the same way, but for me, this is important, and that's what counts. The most valuable thing is to be clear that no one who is above you in terms of success or personal growth will take the time to criticize you. On the contrary, those people seek to support you and help you improve. If someone constantly minimizes you, it's a clear sign that their insecurity is being reflected onto you. How to face hidden hatred. The key is to set clear boundaries and protect your emotional well-being. If someone keeps devaluing your achievements or making you feel small, it's time to reevaluate that relationship. As Seneca said, there is no greater slavery than the one imposed on oneself. Identify the pattern and choose not to allow the insecurities of others to affect your self-esteem. Your value doesn't depend on external validation, but on how you see yourself. Surround yourself with people who support you, and don't hesitate to distance yourself from those who minimize you. Protect your peace and keep moving forward toward your goals. Before moving on to the fifth signal, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with the bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you enjoy this kind of content as much as I do, comment, "I love wisdom." Let's keep learning together and improving our lives. Fifth signal, unnecessary competition. Have you ever noticed that a certain person always tries to outdo you, even in the most trivial situations? This attitude could reveal a deeper hidden feeling than you might imagine. Imagine this. You're in a meeting with friends and mention that you finally ran 5 kilometers without stopping. Instead of congratulating you, your friend immediately responds, "Oh, that's fine. I ran a half marathon last week." Does this sound familiar? This constant need to surpass your achievements is not just a display of inflated ego, but it could be an indicator of hidden resentment. Unnecessary competition manifests in subtle but constant ways. It could be trying to have the last word in every conversation, or trying to impress your friends more than you do. It's as if they're in an invisible race that you didn't even know you were competing in. So, why would someone act like this? Psychology offers some interesting answers. This compulsive need to outdo you often arises from insecurity and low self-esteem. The person who secretly hates you may feel threatened by your achievements or your personality. Instead of admitting these feelings, they channel them through constant competition. But wait, there's more. This competitive attitude isn't just limited to personal achievements. It can extend to material aspects of life. If you buy a new car, suddenly they need one that's more luxurious. If you mention a trip you're planning, they've already booked a more exotic one. It's as if your happiness is a personal challenge for them. You'll be surprised at how far this competition can go. Even in situations of loss or difficulty, these people will find a way to outdo you. If you share a tough experience, they'll have an even more dramatic story. It's as if they can't allow you to have the spotlight, even in your most vulnerable moments. The irony of all this is that While they try to demonstrate their superiority, they're actually revealing their deep insecurity. This constant need for comparison and outdoing is exhausting, not only for you but also for them. It's a vicious cycle of dissatisfaction and resentment that never ends. How should you act in the face of this signal? The key is not to play their game. Recognize their attempts at competition for what they are, a manifestation of their own insecurity. Don't feel the need to justify your achievements or experiences. Your value doesn't depend on being better than anyone. Sixth signal, spreading rumors or talking behind your back. Have you ever felt like your reputation is crumbling without knowing why? We're talking about rumors and gossip behind your back, a social poison that spreads silently. Imagine for a moment that your words and actions are like seeds. In the hands of someone who appreciates you, these seeds are cultivated carefully, growing into positive stories about you. But when they fall into the hands of someone who holds a grudge, those same seeds can turn into toxic rumors that spread like weeds. Rumors are particularly harmful because they have the power to alter the perception others have of you without giving you the opportunity to defend yourself. As philosopher Socrates said, the way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. However, when someone spreads rumors about you, they're trying to destroy that image you've worked so hard to build. So how can you detect if someone is talking badly about you behind your back? Pay attention to subtle changes in the behavior of people around you. Do you notice evasive glances or conversations that suddenly stop when you approach? These could be signs that rumors are circulating about you. Another revealing sign is when private information you've only shared with certain people starts becoming public knowledge. If you find yourself thinking, how did they find out about this? It's possible someone is leaking confidential information about you. Rumors not only affect your reputation, but they can also have a significant impact on your emotional well-being. Studies in social psychology have shown that being the victim of rumors can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and social isolation. It's as if they're stripping away the emotional oxygen necessary to thrive in your relationships. You'll be surprised by what research reveals about the power of rumors. A study conducted by the University of California found that negative rumors spread 33% faster than positive ones. This means a lie about you can circulate through your social circle before you have the chance to tell your side of the story. So, what can you do to protect yourself from this silent attack? The key is assertive communication and emotional self-protection. Don't be afraid to confront rumors head-on. As Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius advised, the best way to defend yourself is not to resemble the attacker. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, respond calmly and clearly. Address the rumors directly with the people involved, presenting your truth without attacking. This approach can not only stop the spread of rumors, but also demonstrate your integrity and strength of character. Remember, words have power both to hurt and to heal. As poet Maya Angelou said, "Words are things. I think they get on the walls, on your upholstery, on your clothes, and finally, on you." Don't allow the negative words of others to take root within you. Seventh signal, passive-aggressive comments. Have you ever felt that someone's jokes leave a bitter taste? Passive-aggressive comments are like little daggers wrapped in gift paper. They may seem harmless, but their intention is clear: to hurt without leaving evidence. Imagine this situation. You've just finished a project at work, and your colleague says with a smile, "Wow, you finally did something right." Do you feel the sting? That's the power of passive-aggressive comments. They are criticisms disguised as compliments, jabs hidden behind a forced laugh. But why would someone choose such a twisted form of communication? Psychology gives us some clues. People who resort to these comments often struggle to express their anger or frustration directly. It's like they have a volcano of negative emotions bubbling inside them, but instead of letting out a controlled eruption, they let out small clouds of toxic gas. You'll be surprised by the variety of forms these comments can take. "Oh, of course, you're always so perfect," is a classic that aims to belittle your achievements. "What a surprise that you did something right," is another example that, under the appearance of a compliment, hides a negative expectation about you. Now, the impact of these comments can be devastating. Imagine that every day you receive a small dose of emotional poison. At first, you barely notice it. But over time, your self-esteem begins to erode like a rock constantly struck by the waves of the sea. You start to doubt yourself, your abilities, even your perception of reality. So, how can you protect yourself from this subtle attack? The key is assertiveness. When someone throws one of these verbal darts at you, you can respond calmly. What exactly do you mean by that? This simple question forces the other person to face the true intention behind their words. Setting clear boundaries is essential. You can say something like, "I appreciate the humor, but that comment makes me feel belittled. I would prefer if you spoke to me directly if you have an issue with me." This response not only shows your emotional intelligence, but also opens the door to more honest and healthy communication. Eighth signal, they make you feel guilty for no reason. Imagine this situation. You decide to go out with your friends on a Friday night. When you come back home, your partner greets you with a cold, "Did you have fun while I stayed here alone?" Suddenly, you feel a pang of guilt in your stomach, but why? You haven't done anything wrong, have you? This is a clear example of how some people use guilt as a weapon to control you. It's a subtle but devastating tactic that can erode your confidence and self-esteem without you realizing it. Psychologist Dr. Maria Fernandez explains, "Inducing guilt is a form of emotional manipulation that seeks to make the victim feel responsible for the emotional well-being of the manipulator." But how can you identify when someone is trying to make you feel guilty for no reason? Pay attention to phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," or "If you really cared, you wouldn't do this." These expressions are designed to plant doubt in your mind and make you question your own actions. You may be surprised to learn that this manipulative behavior has deep roots in the insecurity of the manipulator. Dr. Juan Perez, an expert on toxic relationships, points out people who constantly make others feel guilty often have low self-esteem and use this tactic as a way to maintain control in their relationships. So, how can you defend yourself from this emotional manipulation? The first step is to recognize that you are not responsible for other people's feelings. Your actions can influence how others feel, but you are not the guardian of their emotions. Imagine this. You're at a party and decide to leave early because you have an important commitment the next day. Your friend says, "You always leave us, don't you care about us?" Instead of apologizing profusely and staying longer, you could respond, "I understand you feel disappointed, but I have a responsibility tomorrow and need to rest. I hope you understand." This assertive response sets a clear boundary without falling into the trap of unwarranted guilt. Dr. Ana Lopez, a family therapist, recommends, practice self-validation. Remind yourself that your feelings and decisions are valid, even if someone tries to make you feel otherwise. But wait, there's more. Constant exposure to this type of manipulation can have long-term effects on your mental health. Recent studies have shown that people who frequently experience induced guilt are at a higher risk of developing anxiety and depression. It's crucial that you learn to identify and counter these tactics to protect your emotional well-being. And what if the person making you feel guilty is someone very close, like a family member? In these cases, setting boundaries can be even more challenging. Psychologist Carlos Rodriguez suggests, start an honest conversation about how these comments make you feel. Sometimes people are unaware of the impact of their words and need to be pointed out. Remember, guilt can be a healthy emotion when it's justified, but when it's used as a tool of manipulation, it becomes a toxic weapon. Learn to differentiate between legitimate guilt and emotional manipulation. Your mental peace and self-esteem will thank you. Ninth signal, they don't defend you when others attack you. Think about the last time someone verbally attacked you in public. Who came to your defense? Who stayed silent? And most importantly, who took the opportunity to join in the criticism? These situations are like an instant loyalty detector. True friends are like a protective shield, while false ones, well, they're like a knife in the back. But why does this happen? Psychology gives us some clues. Often, people who don't defend you are dealing with their own insecurities. They fear that by defending you, they will themselves become the target of criticism. It's as if they're at a party and see someone about to fall off their chair. Rather than helping, they prefer to look the other way to avoid drawing attention to themselves. Now let's not confuse silence with neutrality. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." How true this is. Silence in these cases is a form of complicity. It's like witnessing a robbery and doing nothing about it. Technically, you're not the thief, but you're not innocent either. You may be surprised to learn that this behavior has a name. It's called the bystander effect. This psychological phenomenon occurs when people are less likely to offer help when there are others present. Sounds familiar, right? It's as if everyone thinks someone else will step in, and in the end, no one does. But wait, it gets worse. Some people don't just stay silent, they actually join in the criticism. This is even worse. It's like a firefighter who, instead of putting out the fire, decides to pour more gasoline on it. Why do they do this? Sometimes it's out of envy, other times due to their own insecurity, and in some cases, it's simply because they were never really your friends in the first place. So what can you do about it? First, observe. Pay attention to who stays silent or joins in the criticism. Second, communicate. Talk to them privately and ask why they acted that way. Their responses will tell you a lot about their true loyalty. Third, decide. If someone consistently leaves you alone in difficult moments, maybe it's time to reconsider that friendship. Remember, surrounding yourself with people who support you is not a luxury. It's a necessity. As Jim Rohn said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose wisely. Look for friends who are like umbrellas in the rain, not like umbrellas that flip over with the wind. 10th signal, they treat you like a resource, not a person. When someone treats you like a resource and not as a person, you're facing a dangerous situation. It's as if you're an emotional ATM, only being sought after when they need something from you, but disappearing when you're out of balance. This behavior is a clear sign that they don't value you as a human being, only as a means to an end. But how do you clearly identify this sign? Pay attention to the patterns in communication. Do they only call or message when they need a favor? Do they mysteriously disappear when you need support? It's like having a ghost friend who only materializes when it's convenient for them. Now, this goes beyond occasional favors. We're talking about a constant pattern where your well-being is never factored in. It's like being a secondary character in the movie of their life, appearing only when the script requires it. Sound familiar? Imagine this. You're going through a tough time and need to vent. You call this person, but they're always too busy. However, when they need help moving or alone, suddenly they have all the time in the world for you. Coincidence? Probably not. This type of behavior can be devastating to your self-esteem. It makes you feel used, disposable, as if your value is only tied to your usefulness. It's a subtle yet powerful form of emotional manipulation that can wear you down over time. This attitude doesn't just affect your emotional well-being, it can also impact your personal and professional life. Imagine constantly postponing your own needs to satisfy theirs. Over time, you may find yourself exhausted, frustrated, and resentful. And what about your personal growth? When someone only sees you as a resource, they aren't interested in your development or dreams. It's like they keep you in a box, only pulling you out when needed. This can halt your progress and limit your opportunities for growth. This behavior also creates an emotional void because, in the end, you realize that this person is not interested in you as an individual. They don't celebrate your achievements, support you in your personal challenges, or offer space for you to share your own experiences. It's like you're always in service mode, but never seen as someone who deserves to be heard, supported, or valued for who you truly are. It's important to recognize this pattern and become aware of how it makes you feel. If you're constantly exhausted, feeling like you're giving more than you receive, it's time to set boundaries. Your time, energy, and well-being are worth more than being a mere resource for others. In the end, being treated as a person, with respect and consideration, should be the norm, not the exception. 11th signal. You feel like you always have to prove yourself to be accepted. Imagine a relationship where you never feel good enough, where every interaction feels like a test to prove your worth. Does that sound familiar? This final sign is particularly insidious because it masquerades as motivation or high expectations. However, the reality is that you're in a constant state of anxiety, trying to earn the approval of someone who, theoretically, should accept you just as you are. In a healthy relationship, whether it's a friendship, romantic, or family bond, there's a foundation of mutual acceptance. You don't need to constantly prove your worth or justify your existence. But when someone secretly dislikes you, they place you in a position where you're always under evaluation. This behavior can manifest in various ways. Perhaps you feel like your achievements are never enough for this person, or maybe you notice they constantly compare your actions to others, making you feel like you're always falling short. In extreme cases, you might even feel that your place in their life is contingent upon your performance or meeting arbitrary standards. It's important to recognize that this kind of dynamic is neither normal nor healthy. Authentic relationships are built on mutual acceptance and support, not constant evaluation. If you find yourself always trying to impress someone or feeling like you're in an endless audition, it's time to reconsider that relationship. Remember, your value as a person doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. You are valuable simply for existing, not for what you can do or prove. The people who truly appreciate you will accept you with your virtues and flaws without needing you to earn a place in their lives. After exploring these 11 signs of hidden hate, we've arrived at a crucial truth. There will always be people who don't appreciate us, and some who secretly dislike us. But the real question is, does it really matter? It's impossible to please everyone. Each person has their own filter, their own experiences, their own way of seeing the world, and that directly influences how they perceive us. Even the most beloved people have detractors, and that's perfectly natural. Instead of obsessing over those negative feelings directed at us, what really matters is how we feel about ourselves and our lives. Acceptance and happiness don't depend on others' approval. We don't need to be at the service of others' validation. Instead of seeking acceptance from everyone, it's far more valuable to invest in authentic relationships where we are appreciated for who we truly are. He who is a friend to all is a friend to none. This saying reminds us that true relationships are selective and deep. We can't genuinely connect with everyone, and that's okay. It's better to have a small but loyal circle than a crowd of superficial acquaintances. We've all had experiences where for some reason we don't like certain people, and that's completely human. We don't need to get along with everyone, and the ability to choose our relationships is part of taking care of our emotional health. Instead of obsessing over who might be secretly resentful of us, let's focus on what truly matters, cultivating relationships that nourish us, inspire us, and accept us as we are. Surround yourself with people who add value to your life, who are there when you truly need them, and who make you feel supported, not just surrounded by people. Remember, the secret hate of others says more about them than about you. Don't let it affect your self-esteem or emotional well-being. Instead, invest in your personal growth, pursue your dreams, and live according to your values. Because in the end, the only thing that really matters is how you feel about yourself and the people who truly value you. If you've made it this far, write in the comments "I am worth a lot," so I know who the victorious ones are that made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content like this in the future. Share this video with those who might find it useful, and consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. The link is in the pinned comment. Now, I recommend you watch one of these 2 videos to continue learning about Stoicism and human psychology. A big hug, and see you next time.